Okay, so let's talk about the business plan. The one of the I guess the major assignment in this course and the major work product of this course is a business plan for a proposed or current business. It can be an academic exercise or it can be something that you really want to start up. And so let's talk about what a business plan is. Your business plan, I like to think of it as kind of like your recipe for success. A business plan, in actuality, though, is a document that sets out the basic idea underlying a business and the related startup considerations. I should stop kicking my chair there. It identifies the nature and context of the business opportunity. It presents your approach to exploiting the opportunity. It identifies factors affecting your business's potential success. And most importantly, it's your tool for raising capital. If you go to get a loan from somewhere, they're probably going to want to see a business plan. If you are looking for an investor, they're probably going to want to see a business plan. So having a plan and creating a plan by virtue of this course is going to be a really convenient thing if you are planning to continue your entrepreneurial journey. So what the plan does, it does quite a few things. But first of all, it provides a clearly articulated statement of goals and strategies for internal use. Your plan is used both internally and a lot of times it can be used externally as well. Like I said, investors. Sometimes if you're trying to land a key supplier, they might want to see something. And so it really does show what your business is and where you think it's going to go. It imposes discipline on the entrepreneur and the management team because it's very structured in what it wants you to do and what you've committed to doing. It serves as a selling document to be shared with outsiders. So I mentioned prospective customers, suppliers, and investors. It can help you secure favorable credit terms from an investor. It oftentimes is required by lenders. A lot of times they even want you to use specific types of software to develop it. I'm going to give you a template for this course. Super straightforward, and we'll talk about that as we in another video. So there's a couple of different types of business plans. There's a summary or a lean plan, which is pretty short form. A lot of times it's only 1 to 2 pages or 1 page. It can be visual in nature as well. And it just presents the most important issues and projections for the business. The comprehensive plan generally has an in-depth analysis of all of the critical factors: marketing, management, finance, organization, or operations. So it takes into account all of these really crucial factors that will determine your success or your failure. And it includes some really important underlying assumptions. For this course, you will be doing a comprehensive plan. So how much planning is needed when you do a business plan? The first thing that I'm going to say is it depends on the size and scope of your business. If your business concept is to make a product, like maybe you're making little tiny coffee cups to sell at local farmers markets, well, your plan is not going to be super comprehensive. If your plan is to open a bar and grill, your plan is going to be comprehensive. If you're doing something where you're going to have like some kind of, where you're planning on, global domination, your plan is going to be pretty comprehensive. And so it really does need to match the scope of what you intend to do with your business. Factors that also affect the extent of the plan: the time and money that it takes to prepare the plan. Mostly for you all, it's going to be the time that it takes to prepare a plan. Your management style and ability. Some people just don't get into the details as well as others. Preferences of the management team. I just talked about the complexity level of the business. The competitive environment. If you're in a market, or you're planning to be in a market where there's a lot of zero-sum competition, you're going to need to be pretty thorough in how you are going to market and sell your products, and a lot about your supply chain as well. and the level of uncertainty in the marketplace or the level of uncertainty for your business, also a factor. So what does the plan do? The plan tells your story to others. Its primary role is about attracting investment. So it has to be an effective marketing document that can quickly capture an investor's interest. I'll talk about how you do that a little bit later on. But you also have to understand, whenever you're writing something, you have to understand who your reader is. And the reader for your business plan is a potential investor. And so you need to get into the role of the investor to know how to write to them. So the first thing that you need to understand is that entrepreneurs are glass half full kind of people. They're very optimistic. Investors are realists and even skeptics. They're going to look to poke holes in your plan. Investors tend to focus on the financials. So when are you going to break even? What's your cash runway look like? When are you going to be in positive cash flow? They want to know things like that. And so regardless of what kind of plan you have, you definitely need to know how to speak financials, which we'll get to. Investors tend to have a short attention span. So a 50-page plan is probably going to lose an investor at about page 10. So ideally, a 10 to 12-page plan, I think, is ideal. Bad information and poor preparation can cause investors to lose interest quickly. Your plan needs to be written well with good grammar. It needs to, like I said, capture their attention. Start off with a really compelling statement of attention, an attention-getting statement. Those types of things will keep the investor turning the page. And ideally, your goal is to keep an investor turning the page. So plans that attract investors are plans that speak the investor's language. They are brief, so they're not extremely long. Like I said, 10 pages, 10 to 12 pages, I think is ideal. They need to be well organized. We think of a plan as a tangible document. Business plans, investors are many of them are old-fashioned and they want plans on paper. So we talk about it in terms of paper, but also knowing that most plans, these days are PDF documents or they're Google Doc files, whatever they might be. But if they are printed, they need to be well organized. Table of contents, numbered pages, maybe even colored tabs, whatever it might be. They need to be market oriented and meeting customers' needs. So you need to talk about the market and not focus on how great your product is. You can talk about how great your product is as long as you make it clear that there's people that are going to want to buy it. They have to show evidence of customer acceptance of the proposed product or service. So you're going to need to show demonstration of a little bit of research that people are going to want to buy your product. For this course, you don't have to actually go and do the research, but you need to be able to explain what you've done. Plans that attract investors also recognize the investor's need to be paid back. So when are you going to pay back the money that you're asking from them if you're asking for a loan? For an investor who's going to take a piece ownership in your company, maybe, they want to know how long until they get paid back in whatever way that they're going to get paid back, whether it's through their ability to sell stock, selling of the business, whatever it might be. Another factor of attractive plans is plans that demonstrate evidence of focus on a limited number of products or services. Investors want to see a clear concept for a small variety of products or services. They want to see that you're focused and that you're not getting a loan to start a restaurant with a food truck with a coffee cart. An investor is going to say food truck only, restaurant only, coffee truck only, and then expand. Also, investors like plans where you have a proprietary market position through intellectual property, copyrights, patents, trademarks, something that gives trade secrets would be another one, something that is going to make your business have something tangible that can be sold. Unattractive plans, or plans that create unfavorable reactions. If you show an infatuation with the product or service and downplay market needs or consumer acceptance, like I said, you don't want to be so infatuated with your product or service that you don't explain and make clear who's going to buy and why you know that they're going to buy. Plans that are based on financial projections that are at odds with accepted industry norms. If somebody is asking me to invest in a grocery store, grocery stores have very predictable margins. Restaurants have predictable margins. Most industries have pretty predictable margins and revenues and profitability rates. And so a lot of investors specialize in areas, and so they know what those profitability rates are. And if you are going to seek investment, you better know too, so that if it's 30% and you're saying you're going to get 120%, you're going to need to explain that. Unrealistic growth projections. Investors want to see focus and scalable growth that's not out of control. And plans that contain a need for custom application, custom engineering, something that's going to make overly difficult or complicated products, something that's going to make substantial growth difficult. So plans should be arranged appropriately. They should start with an executive summary. The executive summary is basically the attention getter. It is going to be the determining factor on whether or not the investor turns to page 2 or throws your plan in the trash. And so when we get the executive summary should always be written last. And when we get closer to executive summary, I will talk a little bit more about that. Should be not too long, not too short, not too fancy, not too plain. It just needs to clearly lay out your business concept and all of those required components. It should give a sense of what the founders in the company expect to accomplish in 3 to 7 years. And it should explain in both quantitative terms and qualitative terms the benefit to the user of the company's products or services. So quantitative using numbers, qualitative using words. It has to present evidence of the marketability of the products or services that you're selling. It has to justify financially the means that you've chosen to sell those products or services. I know this sounds like a lot, but I got you. I got you on all this. It has to explain and justify the level of product development that you're doing, the product development that you have achieved thus far, and explain the manufacturing costs if you're doing a product-based business. It has to portray the partners, again, there's that word team again, of experienced managers with complementary business skills. Like I said, investors like you to be surrounded by people that are going to help you. Wow, I didn't realize I had this much. It has to suggest a high overall rating. It must suggest as high an overall rating. That does not sound like a very well-worded slide. Okay. Basically, what that slide is trying to say is that that the product that you're creating and the team that is creating it is well developed and highly sophisticated. There, simple. It has to contain believable financial projections with key data explained and documented. I explained that. It has to show how investors are going to cash out, or how they can cash out, within 3 to 7 years with appropriate capital appreciation. Capital appreciation is what they're going to get in exchange for their investment. So are they going to make 10% on their money? Are they going to make 5%, 25%? So they have to know, if I give you $100,000 of my money, what am I going to get back after 3 years? It has to be presented to the most potentially receptive financiers as possible to avoid wasting precious time as company funds dwindle. So what that also crappily worded slide means is that you need to present it to people who you really think are going to be investing in your business, because the time that you take up in pitching different types of investors is valuable time that your business is losing your experience and your cash that they're supposed to be giving you. It has to be easily and concisely explainable in a well-orchestrated oral presentation. You have to be able to do that pitch at the end. So generally what happens is you give a plan and here's the pitch. So some suggestions for writing the plan. Table of contents and section tabs. You always want to have the table of contents so that the investor knows where it's going, because investors will go to certain parts of the plan. If I'm a marketing person, I'm going to your marketing area first. If I'm a financial person, I'm going to go to your finance area first. It's just what people do. Most business plans a lot of times are in a loose leaf binder instead of bound, because business plans get revised a lot. Graphs, exhibits, tabular summaries, all great things to have. If you're a restaurant or you're going to open a restaurant, having a menu or a description of like some of your key menu items is a great thing. You always want to indicate that all information is confidential. If you have multiple copies, you want to have numbers. You want them to be numbered. And a lot of times you want to require written receipts. A lot of people will want to ask investors to sign non-disclosure agreements or NDAs. Most investors will not do that because and in fact, many of them see that as an insult, because they're in the business of investing. They're not in the business of like starting up businesses. And so, yeah, they see that as kind of like unsavory when you ask them to sign an NDA. But you want to be careful about divulging competitive information or anything proprietary. You don't want to put your patent application in your business. Well, patent applications can be public once they're filed, but you don't want to put anything in the plan that is confidential. And you also want to ask people that you trust to review your plan before you provide it to a potential investor. And always let somebody know that you are going to provide it to a potential investor, because I feel like then they will read it with a more critical eye for you. In terms of contents, pretty straightforward. Title page, table of contents, the executive summary. I'll talk about that later. Vision and mission statement. You know how I feel about those. Company overview, which is your company description. And then there are a series of smaller plans. Your marketing plan, your operating plan, your financial plan. And then there's an appendix of supporting documents. What kind of supporting documents? SWOT analysis is great. Like I said, a menu, if you're a business that's like going to be food related, pictures of your packaging, anything that helps to convey what your business is, what it does, and what you've done thus far. You want to put in the stuff that's really going to make them want to give you money. So there's 4 specialized plans within the business plan. And in this course, you're going to draft 2 that you're going to provide me with for feedback. And then the management plan and the operations plan here tends to be smaller. And so those you should be on your own for, and you'll be just fine. The marketing plan describes the user benefits of the product or the service and the type of market that exists. The management plan is the organizational structure and who's running the business. The operating plan is about how you are going to get your products to market or your service delivered. So that's things like facilities, labor, location, materials, key employee, like if you have like more than 5 or 10 employees, maybe like your organizational chart, payroll information, things like that. And then your financial plan provides an account of your financial needs or the financial needs of the business, things like revenues, costs, profits. And then you're always going to provide what are called pro forma financial statements. Pro forma simply means estimated. And so those are financial statements that project going forward your financial condition. So what not to do? Some mistakes to avoid. You want to make sure that your data is solid. You want to make sure that you describe the product in customer-related terms, not industry jargon. You want to make sure that you've thoroughly analyzed the market, that you can speak to who your market is, who's going to buy your product, who your customer is. You want to make sure that you provide financial statements that are correct and complete and not overly detailed. You don't want to hide your weaknesses. You want to acknowledge those. If your business has a fatal flaw, your fatal flaw is the one thing that's going to make you go out of business. Like maybe I am basing my business around I'm starting a business. Maybe I'm like a business manager for record artists, and maybe I have the next Taylor Swift. Okay, well, my fatal flaw might be that the next Taylor Swift could move on to another business manager very quickly once she realizes that I'm not a great business manager for her record career, whatever. Grammar is important. I already talked about that. And then again, length. Business investors don't want to read 30 pages. One thing that I can tell you about business people is we don't like to read. We are bullet point people. And so 10 to 12 pages, maybe 15 to 20, in rare occasions is what works. 15 to 20 if you're actually going for like an SBA loan or something. And you want to keep the right perspective. Just because you have a good business plan doesn't mean that you're going to be successful, because execution and implementation matters more than your plan. You've got to be able to turn the words into actions. I'm talking a lot with my hands for this lecture. I don't know why. Writing a business plan is typically an ongoing process. It's something that's meant to be revisited. It's a living document, okay? And it represents what is anticipated. A good entrepreneur adapts the plan to fit the unexpected, to fit what's happening in the marketplace. And and I don't have concluding thoughts. Well, here's my concluding thoughts. So for the business plan assignment that you're going to be doing, I provide you with a template and an outline. And one of the things that you need to know with business planning and writing a business plan is the template and the outline contain all of the information that you might possibly want to put in there, but there's going to be things that don't apply to your business. If something doesn't apply to your business, just leave it out. So yeah, those are my concluding thoughts. And I'm going to look forward to reading all of your business plans at the end of the term.